Hell, apparently Matt's not around, and I don't think Lachlan's around, so we can kick off, I think. So I think we said we were going to do half an hour rather than an hour today. Do we just want to do? I think there's probably it looks like there's a few new folks on the line as well. Do we want to do really quick introductions? Don't want to take up too much time, but I think it's good when we're getting started and there's a bunch of new people. So I'm Gareth Rushgrove. I'm the product manager at Docker, responsible for a lot of developer tooling, including the work we're doing on CNAB. I'll call people out because it's probably the quickest way. So Ryan, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, I'm Ryan Moran. I work at Pivotal. We're looking at CNAB as a possible packaging format for what Pivotal delivers as product. And so we're just interested in connecting with y'all. There are a bunch of Pivotal folks on the line today.
Yeah, cool. Do the people in Pivotal SF want to say hi? Looks like it's a nice easy one.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ravashi. I'm a software engineer working on the same team as Ryan, so for the same reasons joining this call. I'm joined by Isha. I'm a product designer as well at Pivotal, also joined by Ryan and everyone else.
Cool. Oh, welcome. Radu?
I think that's me. Hi, everyone. I'm Radu. I'm a software engineer in the Azure team. I work on CNAB, Spec, Duffle, and a bunch of other tooling around cloud native.
Carolyn?
Hi, I'm Carolyn Van Slyke. I work at Microsoft out of Chicago. Excuse me. And I mostly work on Duffle and Porter.
Lachlan?
I'm going to step in for Lucky. He's not going to be able to talk today.
No worries. Gabriella, is that right?
Yeah, Gabrielle. Hi, I'm also from Pivotal. I'm a product manager. I work with Ryan, Isha, Irv, everyone that introduced themselves already, and Samir, who's also on the call. I'm normally based in San Francisco, but I'm in London for a conference, so I'm just joining from here.
Michelle?
Hey, I'm an engineer on the Azure Cloud Native or Cloud Compute team. They keep changing our names. I work on Duffle and some other open source projects around Kubernetes, like Helm and Draft.
Julian?
Hi, everyone. My name is Julian. I work as a partner technical consultant on Azure, working for Microsoft based in Bucharest, Romania. And I'm kind of sort of new to the CNAB technologies, working for containers for a while. And I'm looking forward for discussions that are going to be held here. Thank you for having me.
Scott and Mark?
Hi, we're at Pivotal on the Pivotal Function Service team. We're in Boston and interested for the same reasons Ryan described.
Sylvain?
Hello, I'm software developer at Docker Paris, working with Gareth on Docker app and CNAB integration.
S. Davies?
I need to change that, don't I? Simon. I'm a program manager at Microsoft on the same sort of renamed team as Michelle, the containers team, looking at integration of Azure and CNAB, and I'm also in the UK.
Samir?
Hi, good morning. I work with, I'm at Pivotal. I work with Gabby and Ryan and the rest of the folks. We work on a team that kind of is hoping to standardize the packaging and the install experience for the majority of the products at Pivotal.
Matt Fisher.
Glad you got the last name there. I'm Matt Fisher. I work over at Microsoft Azure, same as Michelle and Simon and everyone else here, or a couple of us over here, working mostly on Helm and Duffle.
The other Matt for F. Matt Farina.
Hello. So I'm mostly silently lurking, but I work at Samsung on the cloud native computing team. I work on Helm, and I have poked at the Spec some with some stuff. And in many ways, I'm kind of lurking, looking to see where this makes sense for the stuff that we work on.
Yep. Steve Lasker.
Hey, folks. So I'm also hiding as I'm driving. So I'm a program manager for the Azure Container Registry, and I've been my involvement is how can we reason over these different artifacts. in a registry. So we want to be able to store Helm, CNAB, every Gareth has a list of others that I'd be curious what those others were.
Yeah, I need to send you that.
M6s and a bunch of things. So, but how do we, I want to take the opposite perspective, is from a registry, how do we know what these things are so we can store these things and let everybody leverage that infrastructure in the various clouds?
Yep. Josh?
Hey, I'm Josh Stolutsky. I live in Chicago, currently between opportunities. I'm involved with the Helm project, trying to make sure that we can publish charts into container registries. So working with Steve and Matt and Michelle and things like that. But yeah, I'm also just lurking. So carry on.
Oh, welcome. And I think last should be Vaughn.
Yes, hello. My name's Vaughn. I work for Microsoft out of Boulder, Colorado. Mostly just been pitching in on the Duffle and Porter projects up till now. That's about it.
Yeah. Did I miss anyone? Success. Welcome everyone. There's a few people from the first. So the first call was last week, and there's a whole bunch of new people, which is good. So I think we'll keep doing introductions. I think it's worth the 5 minutes. And get everyone to know everyone else. So we've got an agenda up on. I think someone might have posted it in the chat. I'll go through this. If things don't make as much sense, then we'll skip to the next ones depending on who's here. So the first item someone had put up there was to talk about the spec decomposition. So I know there'd been some conversations in GitHub issues around should some bits of the spec be pulled into like separate bits and then sort of composed back together. I think that was actually Matt Butcher and Simon Ferkwell, who neither of whom are here. So unless someone has a strong opinion on that, and there are other people who have a strong opinion on that, that might be one we can leave to the issues and discussion next time.
Sorry, I just dropped in now. It seems our office has got bad US connectivity, so I'm having to VPN via home. But thank God for fiber everywhere. The discussion last week was around maybe it makes sense to split them up because different ones have different maturities, and that way we can move more quickly. Like the runtime is relatively stable right now. Imaging format is getting there. There was some talk about what we should do for the credential store, or the claim store, sorry. So at least I think, and Simon, I chatted to him earlier, thinks that we should split it up just because it also then means we can, we can have different stabilities for different parts and we can work kind of in parallel on a bunch of different things.
Yeah, I think that's probably just given the audience. We've got a good conversation to keep going on the issues, and we can always bring back last time. If other people have opinions, especially about the should claims be in, there's a open issue discussing that. So storage of CNAB in registries. Chris or Steve, do you want to do a quick update for folks? So for new folks, for context here, that there's the conversation going on around exactly how should CNABs be stored in OCI registries. A lot of that conversation's been on the OCI dev list, and occasionally in the CNCF CNAB Slack channel. So folks have been going to the dev meetings as well for that. So yeah, a quick update on that is probably worthwhile.
Yeah, I think at a high level, one of the things that this OCI group for distribution and the image spec and so forth, love the idea that we'd be able to store additional artifacts. That was part of the vision. So all of that is agreed, and it's just a matter of there's been some transition of the spec as it went from Docker Distribution 1 to Docker Distribution 2 to OCI, and how much can we put these changes in so that we can reason over them outside. And there's a little bit of devil in the details, which is still being worked out. Is probably the best way to say it. From a CNAB or a Helm thing, basically, yes, we want to be able to push those things into a registry. And then it's just, oh, well, this little detail on what text that gets sorted in where and what text file. That's the part that's still a bit open for discussion, balancing breaking changes and discoverability of artifacts in a registry. But I think it's so you guys can get back to the probably the deeper discussions of CNAB. That's probably a good summary. I don't know if Chris has anything more to add.
Yeah, I was just going to say the OCI, the major concern was, do they provide the bits we need to package these things and store them in registries? The answer seems to be, well, the answer last meeting was mostly, I saw Steve posted a mail asking if we could have if we could add a new field, which was, I can't remember what its name was. It was another type, wasn't it?
Artifact type.
Yeah, artifact. So there is still some discussion there, but the OCI was basically of the opinion that if we, as a CNAB community, decide how we want to package things, the directions we were going in made sense. It's up to us to agree what we want to do more than to ask them to tell us what to do. They're just there to provide us the bits, basically.
Yeah, probably. That's a great point. I think the thing is, how can we let artifact teams own how they want to their schema? And it's just at the top level, how do we know that, oh, this is the CNABs team's ownership? I think it's probably that's exactly the balance. Is this, every artifact Helm or CNAB should own their how they lay it out. So yeah, and that minor detail we just talked about is part of what we're up for discussion. That'll get sorted out, and we'll make sure everybody can do what they want to do in each package.
Oh, Gareth, you're muted.
Yeah, if people are super interested in that, I would definitely encourage people to join the dev list for the OCI bits. There's some other interesting related conversations going on there. There's a bi-weekly meeting for that as well, if people want even more calls. Next up, so bit of context. The Duffle basically contains a reference implementation in Go for a whole bunch of the CNAB spec. I've been writing a Python client that actually now has invocation image support as of this week. So that's mainly complete, I think. And I saw today Radu had started writing a .NET C# library as well. So we're starting to have like different libraries. Radu, do you just want to explain a bit about the issue you raised around having a common repository for test data?
Yeah, so as you said, we were starting to see more and more implementations of the CNAB spec in various languages and across multiple repos. And what we've come across is each of these repos are starting to write their own test data, and essentially we're replicating a lot of tests and a lot of various bundles and test bundles across these repos. And going the discussion further in something like, for example, client conformance, would it make sense to have a common repo for test data? And essentially everyone who wants to start implementing the spec could clone that test repo and then run their tests against that code base of tests. Would something like that make sense?
I'm biased, but I think so. Yes. For the Python client, I have a repo called fixtures, and I keep adding things in there for the purpose of validating the library. And having that having that already there would make it like, hey, it's sort of share. It's the same data for everyone. It's useful. Starting new clients would be easier, and you'd have a bunch of stuff you could just write against. So I think definitely it's a good idea.
Yeah, I also think it'd be really useful. Did we want to use the Duffle bundles repo for that, or did we want to have a separate repo, or do we want to have a separate repo for a tool that helps you test the bundles? That's kind of where I'm curious about what we want to see happen.
I think so. I think they're useful. I think the reason the test data is useful separately is that there's not really one tool to write against the different clients, because the different clients will be in different languages. They'll do different things. So like I'll have a bunch of Python unit tests in the Python app, and there'll be a bunch of Go ones in Duffle, and there'll be a bunch of like .NET ones or whatever it might be in different languages. Sharing the same test data makes sense. I don't think there's necessarily tooling there. I think the other thing that actually was another item for the agenda really was tools for validating like the example bundle repo, and that's useful for anyone having their own set of bundles.
Yeah, and one more point to add there. I think we still need an additional repo, mainly because we want to have lots of corner cases, things that someone evaluating and trying to use the bundles repo wouldn't necessarily need.
You also want invalid ones.
Oh yeah, that's really good. That's a good point.
I think that like the example ones want to be like small, well-formed, documented, and like runnable, and the sample data might just be like, this is the smallest failing test case. This is like, oh, this fails in this way. This is like, I think there's just all sorts of, like you say, corner cases, and it'll probably end up with loads over time. And I think making sure that's very clearly separate from the examples makes sense.
I have a question, and I should know this, so sorry, everyone at Microsoft, I can make you look bad. Is there an easy way or a way to tell for any one of the bundles in the bundle repo if it matches a version of the spec right now, or do you just kind of have to like run it through one of the tools and then see if it throws up?
The latter. There's no.
So if someone wanted a way to contribute to the CNAB ecosystem and they're like, wow, I want to work on this and it'd be really cool, but I don't know what to do. If they wrote a validator or set up some JSON schema link that magically validated a bundle for you and linked it all up, or did anything to help us do that, that would be super helpful.
Yeah. So I, with the Python client's basically like complete-ish. There's probably some bugs. I've got a little CLI tool based on that that's actually exposing like useful properties. Now, whether that's the one we're going to use doesn't really matter. Basically, I'm now building something against the client I've wrote to see if the client's any good. And that, like, the client already supports like validating bundles and giving you errors back for different things.
Could we just?
So yeah, like whether it ends up being that one or like extract it out of Duffle, or there's something in Duffle, like having a tool for and a demonstration of a tool used in CI for validating bundles is like good.
What did you say, Michelle? I couldn't hear you.
I have this bad habit of talking over people. So feel free to call me out. But yeah, I was just saying, like, could that be like a basis for building a validator, kind of reusing the work that, Gareth, you have already started? And I don't know if you want to necessarily, because the CLI seemed, with the way you were describing it, was validator plus extra functionality. So if you would be interested in helping or letting us reuse that, then would we use the CLI tool in its entirety, or would we maybe just extract some of the stuff from what you've done?
So what I've started doing is writing a sort of, I'm not gonna write a tool that basically does sort of installation bits. I was gonna write a tool that exposes a bunch of sort of the meta management-y things like validation. So I think it would be useful for this case. I say it doesn't exist yet. I have a skeleton and I have the client, so there's not actually a lot of. It's basically CLI glue at that point. It's basically when I get time to hack on it is the only thing as well. So if anyone else is interested in either using the Python client or ultimately writing in Go and using the libraries from Duffle, then see where we get to. I think having something like that exist would definitely be good.
So just a silly question. Obviously, having validations is always good, and the spec is evolving. Should we maybe just start putting 0.something versions in the charts, the CNAB bundles, to say this complies with this current version of the spec, and as it goes forward, oh, I have to convert this one.
Well, the specs version is, what is it, one of working document, WD?
Yeah.
So it's not gonna necessarily, the version of the spec is not necessarily gonna change every time we change the spec, because we're just working on the working document, from what I understand. So if we were to put something like in the metadata about what spec version this follows, right now it wouldn't be very useful, if I'm understanding how we do this. I'm new to
Yeah.
the spec space.
Yeah, I think the conversation we had is we don't want to just be we want to basically just break the spec as like right now, like trying to think of versions on or support multiple versions like when there's no consumers is like we're better off. I think the conversation we had last time was that ultimately moving fast and breaking things on the spec side of things, like that means that we will break those bundles. Like one of the things we've got better at in the last couple of weeks has been as changes have been made to the spec, basically making sure that PRs are coming. Ideally, it's the same PR for the JSON schema. So we always have that, and that's the reference for like programmatic tooling.
Can I make a suggestion on this? Right now, you're moving fast and breaking things, but sooner or later, the first tools that really leverage this are going to be out the door. At that point, would it make sense to move from a 1.0.0 working draft to maybe alpha and do like -alpha1 to alpha2, something like this to denote changes in it so that tools that are going out the door at that point, or just come up with some criteria to say, at this point, we actually need to move to versions because tools are going to be floating around with users?
The spec has a bunch of process stuff attached to it with regards to the process that like it's currently following. I think we've got 5 minutes left for the call, so that's probably a good conversation, like to take up, like open an issue, because ultimately what you're saying there is, I think the process as laid out now is wrong, and not that that's not invalid or valid, but I think it's probably worth a conversation on an issue to start with, and then like people who are interested in the sort of governance side of things, like having a conversation in person if we don't come to a conclusion.
Okay.
I would just vote in for put a vote in there. We're going to start storing these things in central places like registries, and we assume the spec will evolve, having some obvious way to know, oh, this is that other version. And maybe I have an older version of the tool that can process it, but if we just put things in there and they're not versioned to what compliance they are, then I think we're just going to wind up with a frustrating experience that some things work, some things don't, and they don't really know why. So maybe there's the process that evolves a little bit. And starting with 1.0 is always scary, because then what does 1.0 ship? So if there's a 1.0 alpha, there's obviously a lot of details.
Well, again, so I would say go read the process doc. If you disagree with it, then leave issues against it is the best thing. Probably Matt Bush is not here, and I think we have differing opinions here as well. So skipping on, I've got 5 minutes left. I think I think someone suggested having like a sort of overview of some of the tools, and I think we probably haven't got a time to just go through all of them. But does someone want to do a quick demo of Porter maybe, or Duffle, or I can do a quick look at the Python client or Redis.NET client. Does anyone have a preference of what they'd like to see?
I'd love to see the Python client.
And I can do a stand up for Duffle later.
Yeah, I think given that we have 4 more minutes, I think 1 minute of an overview of what each tool does, I think would be best, mainly for the new folks on the call, and we can leave pointers to demos for each of them. Would that make sense?
Yeah,
Yep.
I really like that idea.
I'll jump on first. Hang on. Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, it was a little confused on how Porter and Duffle play together.
Oh.
Carolyn explained it in Slack, but.
So I've just shared my screen so I hope people can see something. Yeah, in 6 seconds, I've been writing I've been writing a Python client for Spec. It covers basically the core sort of areas, so bundle.json, invocation image, and actually like the runtime stuff. So you can parse a bundle like from a dictionary. You can also describe the format in Python with native classes, render it to canonical JSON. You can also run a CNAB. So if you've got a existing bundle.json, which you may have generated using this, or you may have generated through anything else, you can grab the actions, grab the parameters, grab properties of it, but also run it. So run different actions on it. So run, in this case, the install with some parameters, run status with some credentials, etc. It's implementing the runtime interface. And most recently this week, I added a class for dealing with invocation images, so you can point it at a directory if you're building an invocation image and say, yeah, this is valid. It'll tell you errors otherwise, and you can grab the README and license. Again, like relatively small amount of code. It's help. I mainly was writing it to test the spec, but now I want to write some things on top of it because it was sort of fun. Also, Python has types now in the new version.
You're so excited about that. I love that.
I am. I like Python and I like types, and it turns out I can have them both now.
I'll do
Michelle?
Duffle.
Yeah, go.
Duffle is the reference implementation to CNAB, so for CNAB. So it's a small CLI written in Go that allows you to build, install, uninstall, upgrade, build and install CNAB packages, and then manage the lifecycle of the CNAB packages. So it's the thing that we use to just test out the spec and ensure that it's sane and working, and you can use it for whatever you want. What we've been focusing on lately is refactoring the libraries so that they're reusable by Porter and other things. And I've been working on adding tests this week and working on updating import export and some UX type things. I'll hand it off to Carolyn to explain Porter.
Sure. Real quick, I think the first thing everyone wants to know is what's the difference between Porter and Duffle. Duffle isn't opinionated, it's written in Go. Porter builds on top of Duffle and kind of uses it as an SDK or a library to provide a slightly different way of going about authoring a bundle. It just changes the authoring experience. Yeah, and everything about this is on the community projects page. And the idea about Porter is that you can build something that looks like this. So instead of directly authoring a run script or directly authoring your bundle.json or duffle.toml and kind of getting into the nitty-gritties of what it takes to actually build a bundle, you can think about things at a slightly higher level and compose your bundle out of known components that maybe you know how to work with based on just what it takes to install your app in the first place. So maybe your app is based out of working with Helm or Azure or GKE or Terraform or something like that you already know how to work with. Sorry, Michelle. You can write a file like this, and then Porter will handle building this, making the invocation image, and then making that run script and everything that's necessary in order to work with the CNAB spec, and then executing it for you. And then it also has things like dependencies and stuff like that. It's super rough and kind of in the initial stage of kind of proving it out. But it doesn't really replace Duffle or anything. It's just something that kind of builds on top so we can explore a different UX for authoring bundles.
I have a really quick question. I know it's overtime. There's a repo for bundles, right? And I saw is this just examples of bundles? And is Porter the right place to put like a one size fits all bundle, I guess? Like, is that what the mixins are? Like if I wanted to add a new type?
So the bundles are example bundles. Porter allows you to define bundles in a more declarative manner. Caroline, you want to add?
Yeah, Porter is the bundle definition file that I just showed you when I shared my screen is specific just to Porter. And it's not like mix and match with Duffle and things like that. If you build something with Porter, it only works with Porter. So everything you see in that bundles repository is the bundle.json file, and everything is just with like the raw spec, and it's not made for working with Porter.
But yeah. the mixins are specific to Porter.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Mixins translate CNAB to all these other tools that we already have that exist, like Helm, Terraform, Azure, whatever.
I think on that, and like we were talking about the sort of test data bundles, it might be worth renaming the bundles repo to like bundle examples or something similar, and having a bundles test data, and so we're super explicit about those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's definitely make that an action item and do it.
Any other questions from anyone?
Yeah, so there are a ton of folks on the line here from Pivotal today. I think part of the big push from Pivotal is really to figure out how, like, what exactly CNAB is and how we can get involved, and kind of evaluating it as a possible future format for some of our products. We have dozens of non-trivial cloud-native application products. Like, that's basically all we build and all we ship to our customers. And so we're very interested in getting involved. And mostly what we're kind of interested in is, like, where are the main lines of communication so that we can start to have a more kind of in-depth conversation about, you know, improvements to the spec or changes that would help us to actually start to deliver our you know, massive, non-trivial products to some of our customers.
So 3 main places, and we're just getting started, I guess, as well. I mean, like, one of them is here. So weekly, basically at the moment, weekly half-an-hour community meeting. There's a Slack channel on the CNCF Slack currently called CNAB. So jump in there. I think that's probably a great place for just a load of, like, bombard questions, and a bunch of folks who are already working on things can answer, and we'll go back round. Again, like, super quiet at the moment, but literally, I think it was created a few weeks back. So they're the best places. Where you have, like, detailed questions about the actual spec or suggestions for improvements, issues and pull requests are the best place on the actual spec repo. So they're probably the main places to sort of engage. If you got ad hoc questions, Slack channel is going to be great.
Awesome, great. Yeah, we look forward to starting a conversation for sure.
Brilliant. So yeah, and thanks for coming, everyone. Hopefully that was interesting and of use. Any items to the agendas in the future as well, just add them to the HackPad page, and if we have too many things, we'll work something out. Any last thoughts from anyone? Then we'll call it a day, I think, and Radu can stop the recording, and we're good.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks.
Bye-bye.